I was working with him. It was like just surreal. And what made Lance unbeatable was the fact that people avoid pain, but to Lance, pain was a reminder that he was still alive.
Working with Lance Armstrong, how was that journey? When did you start up with him? Was it after already a couple of his tours, Tour de France's, or is that the beginning when you started working with him?
I started working with Lance after he had recovered from cancer. And I was involved in the preparation for his first tour. And I did all 7 of Lance's tours victories with him.
Yeah.
Boots on the ground at the tour itself. And that's
what
my work was based on. Yeah, 100%. My job was to develop the mental and physical recovery processes and procedures for not only Lance, but the teams that Lance was part of. That was my job. And it was interesting because I was part athlete because I was an Olympian. And so I was also part scientist because I knew the science of it. So I had this very rarefied space where I wasn't quite, well, I was both executive and administration, but simultaneously I was like a writer because I knew the experience. So I was this kind of glue that was able to hold all those parts simultaneously together. And the tour is the absolute, I call it the ultimate life clinic because it is so mentally and physically hard. It's like 3 marathons a day for 23 days is what it is. And it's like, you can't go home and sleep it off like you would if you have a bad date.
No.
And you're going to encounter everything in 23 days that you will face in a lifetime as a teammate. So you don't have the luxury of not getting it figured out. So it was really the most important event that perfectly suited my abilities. And it was one of the most memorable experiences ever. But I want to say something really important here, Jeff, too, is that one of the reasons why we were so successful was the fact that we didn't and we're not trapped by our traditions and our histories. You know, there was a horizontal management. It wasn't vertical management. Their deal with me is, you know what you're doing. You don't need to tell us anything. Just show up and do what you do without any meddling, which allowed me to create the system of possibility that could be that you would never find in any professional team on this planet at this point in time because of the barriers to innovation and novelty. So it was a dream come true for me. And, you know, what a great laboratory, having one of the greatest athletes of all time and be part of, you know, that team for 7 years. I was one of 3 guys that did all 7 of his tours with him. And Lance is a very neat guy. He's radioactive. And, you know, people that kind of either look at him as a deity or a demon or a devil because of some of the challenges that he faced. And there's a really important fact that I'd like to share here, if I could, is that, you know, with Lance's drug use and his admission of that, I mean, obviously that was something didn't know anything about, but to just say that it's a very important life lesson because, you know, people thought that he was either a demon or a devil, and I never thought he was either. I just looked at him as being humans. And I feel that if you expect to learn your life lessons from perfect people, then you're not going to learn much of anything from anybody. And, you know, Lance's life kind of reads like the movie title, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. I mean, what was ugly is that he sued people that told the truth about him. I mean, that's ugly. What was bad about that is that people wanted to grow up and be like him when it was a bit of a facade. But you know what? There's a third word there, good. He did some stuff that was really good that people should really look at.
Incredible. Incredible. Like, I'm gonna jump in there for 1 second, and
please,
because I met Lance, in Montreal, Canada. I was there for an event, and he was there for another event, and he was speaking, and we were at the same hotel, and we had a good conversation. And this is probably going on. I've been married for 18 years, so probably around 18, 20 years already. Around that period, it was right before I was getting married, and I grew up watching the Tour de France. My dad was a huge fan. So every time there's a Tour de France, me and my dad just passed away 12 weeks ago. And he was I always say, Jeff, I'm the 44-year-old that would call my dad 3 times a day. I would call my dad and say goodnight every night. He was my best friend. So it's been a rough last 12 weeks. But my dad, growing up, Tour de France was something in our household. We'd all sit down and watch together. My dad was a huge, huge fan of that because I remember my dad always saying, like, there's nothing more physically and mentally enduring in the sports world than the Tour de France. And he always say this, and people, he goes, people look at this as cycling. It's the mental, physical aspect of it combined, there's nothing that even comes close to it.
Sure.
And so I grew up watching a Tour de France. So I saw those all. I actually have a Tour de France in my office in my house, a yellow Tour de France, U.S. Postal Service. No, I got the hat signed by Lance. He actually signed it for me, and cool. I have it in my thing. So it's when I sat there and I saw everything happening to Lance. He did some dumb stuff, like you said, with going after people, but I think he was put in a corner where he had so much pressure on him that he had to defend himself, and he didn't know any better at that moment almost. But I mean, people don't understand how much he's done for cancer research, how much he's done to help people, how he elevated himself in a sport where, I mean, this is a different talk for a different day, that to me, everybody was on the same playing field.
They were.
He was the best of the best. So if everybody was clean, he would still be the best.
That's exactly right.
He was He is probably, it's sad to say, he should be going down as probably one of the greatest athletes, period.
No question.
And people tame him for something that everybody was on the same playing field.
That's exactly right.
And it bothers me. Something like that. I wasn't even going to go into this conversation today, but that it pisses me off that I see that, because I think he's done amazing things. I think he should be crowned as a hero and crowned for all the research and how many millions of those yellow bands people were, like, the stuff he's done. The stuff he's done is incredible. And then everybody, almost to feel like everybody turned their back on him. And it just drives me crazy when I see that.
Well, I completely agree with you. I actually remember the day that the yellow bands got distributed onto the bus for the very first time.
Yeah.
I was there that moment when they passed them out for the very first time. So, again, to really say that the acts of charity, Lance is an anonymous sort of guy. I've been with him where he actually asked somebody, would you like me to talk with your uncle who's got cancer? He will actually call the guy up on the spot and talk with him. That's the type of guy that he is. I've seen him give Rolex watches to people. You win a lot of money for being at the tour, but Lance doesn't go home with the winning money. That gets left for the team. So again, there's another side of this I think is really important, is that Lance's ethic to honor the team and to honor the fans and to honor the the sponsors of the team itself, it was unparalleled. And the thing that's so interesting about Lance is that the cancer transformed him as well in a variety of different ways. And I know one of the reasons why Lance was unbeatable is that most people fear pain, and they kind of barter with pain. Like, I'll endure a certain amount of pain if I get the guarantee of something in return to myself. And Lance never looked at that, because literally his cancer diagnosis was a death sentence. If you look at what it was, 15 golf ball sized tumors on your lungs, you got cancer in your head, you got it in your abdomen, your testicles got to come off. It's the size of a lemon. When I would be, working with him at the tour, when I worked on him and stuff, I would actually have my hand on top of his head, where they opened up his skull to go in and suck the cancer out. And you could see the zipper where they took the testicle off. You could see where they put the intubation chemo tube in his chest when I was working with him. It was like just surreal. And what made Lance unbeatable was the fact that people avoid pain, but to Lance, pain was a reminder that he was still alive. He knew that. So that was part of how he looked at this. And Lance didn't conquer the cancer. He knows that. It was kind of a gift that was bestowed upon him that he took very seriously. And I remember the night before he won his first tour, we got done working together in our usual and customary time. He lets all of his other teammates go before him. He doesn't show up as the king, lets his teammates go before him. And I said, tomorrow your life is going to change forever. And he said, well, when you get a second chance, you go all the way. And I think we need to be mindful of that. And, I've also heard him say that, pain is temporary, but quitting is forever. And these types of things that we hear and see, we need to be around that level of courage in a world that's becoming less and less courageous. And I feel because of Lance's development and his upbringing, he's misunderstood because he is a bit radioactive, because he has a strong stance on those things that he believes to be true.
Yeah.
and he doesn't shy away from letting people know what he thinks about anything. And so again,
But those aspects of him are essentially what made him a champ.
there's no question about it. You know, one training session in Europe when we were at, they had a 10-mile climb at the end of a 140-mile ride, and it was freezing, and there were snow drifts that were 10 feet high on either side of the road. So, you know, they got to the top of the climb, and all the other riders, they took off all their clothes and stuff. They got into warm clothes. They got inside the vehicles, and they were sipping warm tea. You know, Lance turned around, zipped up his jacket, coasted down to the bottom, rode up a second time by himself. Just a different sort of guy.
Yeah.
And I don't know how, you know, and he could keep his heart rate up to 198 beats a minute for 2 hours. I mean, how do you do that?
Yeah.
You know, and so you have that, and you have a guy that faced death and really honors life, and he judges his aliveness by pain. I mean, that's just an indicator that we're experiencing life as it really is. And I don't know how you're going to beat something that has that level of tenacity. So I appreciate deeply the opportunity to share with you a perspective from myself. And, you know, like he would always be first guy at breakfast. He would be the last guy to leave.
I love that. I love that you're saying this all, because this is something I've actually had deep conversations and even arguments with other individuals about this. And to hear it, I'm going to play this nonstop, because to hear this from somebody that was next to him, that was in the chambers with him, is so important. Because man, I think I think I put him on a pedestal. I think he's amazing what he's done.